Welcome, Crypt fans, to the Cryptique Podcast. I'm your host, Kenny. I'm here with my co-host, Godden. And together, we're here to watch and review every horrific, often hilarious episode of the legendary HBO anthology series, Tales from the Crypt. Tales from the Crypt, we are on the, Godden, get ready for this, the penultimate episode of season 2. We are on episode 17, My Brother's Keeper. It aired July 24th, 1990, and it comes to us from Shock Suspense Stories. And like I said, this is the penultimate episode. So next week will be the final episode of season 2. We're making our way through this, God, in one episode at a time. That's exciting.
Truly, one episode. It is.
All right. So as we get into this episode, I want to remind you all, we are not experts. We are just a couple of hobbyists, a couple of goofy friends hanging out, watching the show, and then talking about it. And we're inviting all of you to join in on that conversation. So if we say anything you like or don't like, feel free to hit us up in the comments and let us know what's up. Also, spoiler warning. We are going to go into great detail on this episode, so make sure you watch the episode first if you want to if you don't want to be spoiled. So there's that. Now let's set the stage, Godden. What was going on the week of July 24th, 1990? What might have we just watched or experienced in the world before watching this episode?
There was a lot of political changes in the world. You know, there was the Persian Gulf War. There was, look at this. If you were a Pantera fan, they released their 5th studio album. So that was one.
So Pantera is on studio album number 5 back in July of 1990. What was the album called?
It was called Cowboys from Hell.
Cowboys from Hell. I know that one. I'm not the biggest Pantera fan, but I know that one. 1990 was a good year for rock and metal, by the way. That was a good era.
Well, the last eras before
it might have been the greatest era for metal before it started to lose itself to grunge and rap and hip hop.
Oh, Home Alone. Home Alone was released during that week.
Oh, the first Home Alone.
The first Home Alone. So it looks like
Oh,
looks like it was starting to catch up.
Oh wow, I didn't know Home
Getting
Alone was
more
a
modern.
summer movie. How about that? Figure it would have came out around November, December.
And the other band that released their album around that same week was, I actually never heard of this band, but they're called Wingers.
Oh, Wingers.
They dropped their second album, In the Heart of the Young.
I don't know Wingers. I don't know
Wingers either.
All right, so that's I suppose that's setting the stage. I guess the setting the stage part of the episode is tough on a weekly basis. If this was a monthly episode, it would be easier to say like what happened in this month, but just that's kind of what was going on in the world. So, okay, let's dive into the episode by first reading the ancient texts inked in blood on human flesh for the episode. I'm looking for it. My Brother's Keeper. Here we are. They're stuck with a problem. Conjoined twins develop a rift when one of them falls in love. That kind of gets at the episode, don't you think? A little bit?
Short and simple and sweet, but it doesn't give away like the rest.
All right, so here's something I came up with. Frank and Eddie are conjoined twins who couldn't be more different. Frank is kind-hearted and thoughtful. He enjoys reading and going to the symphony. Eddie is reckless and chauvinistic. He enjoys drinking and going to nightclubs. The two despise being tethered together, and their only hope of separation is a risky surgical procedure with a 50-50 chance of success. While the odds are good enough for Eddie, Frank is weary, and even though he resents his brother, deep down he's afraid of being alone. But things change when Frank meets Marie, a charming woman whose love and affection gives Frank a glimpse of what life could be like away from Eddie. Is this new relationship enough to push Frank to take the risk? Is this new relationship even genuine? That's much longer than my typical ones, but I think it honestly has to do with the fact that I do like this episode, and I like all the little bits and pieces that kind of all come together to make the episode. So I wanted to include all of that stuff.
It's just, yeah. No, I enjoy this episode. I can't wait to dive in. I mean, we're just getting good episodes now. Back and back. What am I saying?
Back to back.
Back to back. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I like this episode too. It was very, very fun. A great cast of characters. I really liked everybody, even the ones we weren't supposed to like. I liked them, and it's just a fun situation altogether. It did get a bit dark, and you expect that in a Tales from the Crypt episode. So I did enjoy it. It was fun. So the Crypt Keeper intro, he's staring into a mirror, and he says, "Are you alone tonight? Well, consider yourself lucky. There could be 2 of you, and imagine what a frightmare that could be." And then the Crypt Keeper, is shocked by his reflection in the mirror. Remember was it season 1? I don't remember what episode it was, but he looked into a mirror and then it broke. Do you remember that one?
That might have
was that Only Sin Deep?
Yeah, Only Sin Deep. That might have been that one. The Vanity episode. Yeah.
So this time around, he's not breaking the mirror. It should have broke, though. Don't you think it should have cracked just to kind of keep that continuity going?
He thinks he's that ugly.
So he goes on to introduce the story. So for tonight's stars, Frank and Eddie, 2 brothers who are touchingly close. When a woman tries to come between them, she finds herself caught in a tangled web of jealousy and intrigue. I think you'll find it a twinning combination. So without further ado, I bring you my brother's keeper. So the episode starts with the 2 brothers driving together, and they are conjoined twins, which we learned later, but one of them's on the left side, one of them's on the right side, and they're actually connected by a huge chunk of flesh in between their butts. But it allows them to drive still. So one of them's driving, and one of them's sitting in the passenger seat, and the one who's driving is Frank. And Frank is a very kind-hearted one, and Eddie is beside him in the passenger seat, just kind of berating him, saying, "You drive like an old lady." And they're driving a Ferrari. He says, why even bother buying a Ferrari when you drive it like a damn Volkswagen? And of course, Frank is like, "Well, you wanted the Ferrari. I would have been happy with a Volkswagen." So already they're bickering, and I like this dynamic between them. I like how quickly their characters are introduced, and how quickly you learn what they're like. And one of them's forced to do what the other brother wants, but even though he's not good at it, and they just have a different personality type. I always get confused on which one's Eddie and which one's Frank. Frank is the one Frank is the kind one, and Eddie is the one who's kind of reckless. So Eddie from the passenger seat stomps on the gas and floors the car forward, and basically just leaves Eddie kind of, like with nothing to do. He has another foot though. He could step on the brake, I suppose, or throw the car into, I don't know. He could do all kinds of things, but the whole point is his brother's reckless and just wants to floor it to this party. When they finally make it to the party, it's very interesting the way they're doing this, because they are like trying to save the reveal of them being conjoined for later. So all this kind of driving together might not make sense at this point. Even the way they get out of the car is kind of left a little ambiguous, like they just kind of step out together on the same side, but it doesn't really address why or what's going on. And they walk into the club together, and Frank says, "We're freaks." And Eddie says, "You're only a freak if you think you're a freak." And then Frank responds, "Oh, please, when your ass is attached to another guy's ass, you're a freak." So even though they're saving the reveal of what's going on, they're not. It's very strange the way they have the reveal.
I like how their suits were made. That's what really stuck out to me. I was like, that is so well done. Like the little fabric that disconnects them. That's all they needed for the suit.
Right. It does. They have matching suits, but then they're just like, yeah, you're right. Like a little extra piece of fabric.
Well, what do they call the people that valet your cars? Are they just called valet?
Oh, valet.
People?
Yeah.
Valet. Yeah. When he realized they're conjoined twins, he like had a big surprise in his eyes. He probably thought like how they even drove together. Because yeah, that'd be my question too. Because like those seats, I mean, in cars usually they're far enough for like the the gearbox to be in the middle, right? So like I don't know how close or how compact that Ferrari had to be for them to be close enough to do that.
Oh, that might be why they had to get a Ferrari, because the seats are closer together than like a SUV or something. Maybe. Yeah, there are a little like logistical things, like how would this work or how would that happen? They don't address that, and I'm glad they don't. They just sweep over it. Like, how do they get out of the car together at the same time like that? They didn't really show the hassle of one of them jumping over the console or whatever to get to the other side. They just showed 2 feet, or they showed 4 feet hopping out of the car. So they enter the club and they make their way to the bar, and Eddie orders a drink, and that's where Frank reveals, when you drink, I get drunk. And he goes, in that case, make it a double. And that's another thing too that they're very inconsistent with. Whenever one drinks, the other one feels it. But if you look in the opening scene, Eddie was drinking while Frank was driving.
Yeah.
And there's nothing going on there. So I think they just, of course they have to show Eddie drinking a lot to show that he's a drunk, but Frank only feels it, I think, when it's necessary for the plot or something like that. So again, it doesn't make a lot of sense if you really stop to inspect it, but it's a fun ride while you're going through it. So all of these gripes, I don't really mind them. So at the bar, Frank meets Marie sitting right next to him, and they're both reading the same book. Frank is reading Man's Hope, and Marie is reading Man's Fate. And that starts a conversation, and they start talking back and forth. And I think Eddie even says, you look kind of familiar. And she goes, well, you ever go to the symphony? And he goes, oh, I love the symphony. So they go to the symphony, they have a lot in common. So of course they're interested in each other. And at this moment, Eddie leans over and says, under that Marion the librarian exterior, I'm sure there's a studded leather corset just itching to come out. That's kind of his catchphrase too. He says that to just about every woman that he's interested in.
Little freak. He's the freak, not Frank.
Oh, that's right. He would be the freak, huh? Like a freak in bed. And he's also a freak, being connected. So that's their whole meet cute. That's the whole thing that happens between Marie and Marie and Frank. And eventually they go out to dance together, and the dance is so awkward. They're just kind of like doing like very, this type of just throwing their elbows out and shaking their hands around kind of dancing. It's just very basic dancing. But Marie's trying to make the best of it. She's kind of enjoying herself. And when she goes to run in between them, she gets caught up on their skin flap, and there's a hilarious like stretching sound, kind of a stretching sound when she leans over it. Mm-hmm. And that's when she discovers, and that's where it seems like the audience would discover that they're actually connected. And the girl that Eddie is with is like, gross, and she just leaves. But Marie sticks around for a little bit longer to ask a couple of questions, like, oh, you're Siamese twins. And that's kind of where that, she kind of just lets that sink in for a little bit. And then she kind of gets grossed out, and she says, it's getting late. I got to get up early. I got to go. So she leaves. So that's that, basically this condition they have is coming between them and, love. And the next scene's at the doctor's office, where you see an x-ray of their bodies. And it's funny because you see their skeleton, right? And then you just see like a really thick, piece of meat in between them. That's your glimpse as to how they're connected. And the doctor tells them that basically I could separate you two, but you guys, you share the same bloodstream. So if I made the cut, I would need to reroute all those arteries. And it's a risky procedure, and it's a 50-50 chance, which is very, very interesting. I think quite obviously they can just be snipped and then that would be done. But the fact that they said they share the same bloodstream was very odd. Like, of course they share the same bloodstream. So it just seems like a super easy fix by today's standards. But I guess back then it seemed a little more complicated. I don't know. But again, I'm just going along for the ride, so I'm fine with this. So Frank is okay with the 50-50 chance. He says, no, Frank. Frank is worried about the 50-50 chance. He says, there's a 50-50 chance we could die. And Eddie says, no, there's a 50-50 chance we can live. So Eddie right away is willing to sign the medical release form. But Frank hesitates. Frank won't sign there at the doctor's office. Did you have anything else you wanted to add about the doctor and the doctor's office?
I like that he was like German. I like that they went to like a specialist who's a foreign doctor in a sense. But yeah, he sounded very optimistic. He's like, oh, with our latest micro laser technology, it's doable. It's doable.
Yeah.
So yeah, that definitely got Eddie's hopes, really up. Yeah, I feel for Frank though. Like, yeah, it's risky because then they could both just die, just for something like that. So
Yeah.
it's a tough situation for sure. I wouldn't want to be in that position.
Did you get vibes of the doctor from the episode The Switch?
Not really, but now you mention that, I could definitely notice the similarities.
Yeah, it's the accent. The accent got me thinking about that. If it was the same doctor, that would have been so... There are so many opportunities in this show where they could get reoccurring characters more often. If they could have got that original doctor, that would have been fantastic. That would have been so much fun. Yeah, we haven't seen that character in a while. Huh? Remember in season 1, we saw him, I think, twice. And then he came back in season 2. I think we've seen him a total of 3 times. But yeah, he's a lot of fun as a character. I wish we would have had more of him.
He's great, yeah.
So this next scene is actually, it's kind of a long montage of them getting ready for bed. And the whole time they're getting ready for bed, everything in the entire house is basically made for them being attached the way they're attached. They're brushing their teeth together at these sinks that are side by side. They go to the bathroom and it's basically like 2 toilets side by side. They're riding one of those exercise bikes that happens to be like a 2-seater. Just everything they have in their house is so made for them. It's so comical and funny. I love it. But while they're going through all of this, they're basically talking back and forth. Eddie's really trying to make a case for the surgery, saying, look, you'll never have to go to another baseball game or Vegas. You can sleep in your own bed. I could roll over. I thought that was funny that they can never roll over.
That was really...
And he says, and you can go to that cooking school in Paris that you always wanted to go to. And Frank's starting to warm up to the idea. He's starting to fantasize about, I can do this and I could do that, but it's just, the operation's just too risky. And oh, by the way, I also liked that when they go to the fridge together, I like how one of them reaches. Yeah, the one on the right hand side reaches to the left to get one thing, and the one on the left hand side reaches to the right to get. So it was a great little cross that they had. I thought that was a good visual gag, and I also like that Frank gets a glass of milk and Eddie gets vodka before bed. It just really adds to their their characters. That was good. So Eddie had prepared the signature or the release form. Is this where he put it in the platter or was that later?
Yeah, he does the platter first and then next time it's in the bathroom.
That's right. So he has like a little like a platter serving tray. He opens it up and right there is the actual release form with a pen ready to sign, and Frank is ready to sign it, but he just hesitates and says, I can't. The operation's just too risky. And that's where Frank has had enough. At this point, he rips off the cloth that's separating the two of them, and he pulls out a cleaver and he goes, I'm gonna do the surgery myself. And this is where we get a really good look at the actual hunk of skin that's holding him together. Oh my God, what did you think about the way this looked?
It looked really well done, honestly. Like usually, like if it's poorly done, you can see like where like can kind of connect the people, but it looks so seamless. It looked like they were actually conjoined twins, and then it does like the shot from the back. You see just their 2 butts.
It's right.
So
the camera's
really
far back enough to where you can see each one of their butt cheeks, and then it zooms in even closer to that hunk of skin connecting them. I love the fact that you can see the veins inside. It's pulsing.
Yeah,
like there's movement to it. It did look really, really good. It was really gross too.
Mm-hmm. It was gross.
Yeah. So this is where Frank actually admits. He says, I'm afraid that once we have the operation, I'll be lonely. So he's actually, there's actually part of him that loves his brother and doesn't want to be away from his brother. You know, I'm sure because they're like what, like in their 30s or 40s, like they've lived their whole life together, and you know,
30s.
one of them's scared of being alone. So that was kind of a sweet little moment there. And this whole situation is interrupted by a phone call. It's Marie. Marie's calling back, and she actually says, "Hi, it's Marie from the bar. Do you remember me?" Of course he remembers you. So she basically apologizes for her behavior the other night, and she wants to get together again. So that is basically the start of their romance, like the start of their very first date. At this point, Frank's super excited about the date. Eddie can care less. And it's so funny. They're at the sink again and they're getting ready. And one of them is, you know, dressed up real nice. He's getting ready to go out to the symphony. And Eddie is just, he hasn't shaved. He looks like a mess. He smells. And he basically wants to make this as awful for Frank as possible. And this is where he had the signature in the medicine cabinet. Yeah. He opens up the medicine cabinet. He goes, all you got to do is sign. And it's like they're waiting for him to sign. So, yeah, Eddie is just on Frank about signing this form. And Frank won't do it. He's too scared. So they go to the symphony together. Of course, Frank is dragging Eddie along. Eddie does not want to be there. And he's just trying to be as, you know, foul-mouthed and unpleasant as possible. Trying to give Frank as uncomfortable a time as possible. But even that doesn't shake Marie, though. Marie's still interested in Frank. Surprisingly. And then for dinner, they go to dinner. And I think the dinner is at their place, right? It's at the guy's place. Because he made all the food.
Yeah, because Frank cooked.
Yeah. So they're at their place. Frank made all the food. And it's basically Marie is really enjoying the souffle or whatever it was. And she's even asking, oh, how did you do this? And he goes, oh, it's really quite simple. All you have to do is separate the egg yolks. And he starts going about, you know, you could tell he has a passion for cooking. This is another scene where Eddie's drinking. And when Eddie drinks, Frank feels it. So Frank's getting more and more drunk as he's trying to have his date with Marie. And Marie eventually says, you know, oh, it's getting late. I should get going. So she leaves. And I like this moment, too. They try to leave together. They both try to go their own separate ways, but they get caught. So then they try again, but they both go the same direction or the opposite direction. And then they have to kind of like bounce to the side to get out. Just like there's so many visual gags in here. It was a lot of fun to watch.
I just thought it was really funny that Eddie was just really trying to sabotage the whole date. Just like start chugging the wine. Like he just, I don't know. Like I'm not sure. Like ever since they were younger, he's just always been like that. But the fact that he's always willing to sabotage his brother's like dreams and wants, and he just wants to get what he wants—the Ferrari, the operation. You know, just whatever he wants, he just wants to get it. It's like being kind of too greedy. It's kind of unfortunate to be conjoined at the hip with a brother like that.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I did notice that too. In the earlier scene when he was trying to convince him, he says, you know, you don't have to go to baseball games anymore or go to Vegas anymore. Basically, he's telling his brother, you don't have to go to all those places that I go to anymore. But then he says, and you can finally go to the places that you want to go. So in other words, what I got from that was, you know, they're doing everything Eddie wants to do and everything Frank wants to do. He just can't do it. That's what I was getting from that as well. So she leaves and they're at the door kind of, you know, telling her goodbye. And I like the scene how they're both at the doorway, but then Frank kind of shoves Eddie behind the door so he can't be seen. But he's still looking through the peephole. Like he sees his eyeball just staring at the people. Another great visual gag.
Oh, yeah. The two doors, right? They just have their own peepholes.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I didn't think of that.
Yeah. It's just funny. It was a funny way to keep Eddie in that scene. I thought it was pretty funny. So they kiss and then she leaves and Eddie says, oh, I'm in love. And Frank goes, no, the other way around. Frank says, I'm in love. And Eddie says, I know. Whenever you're in love, I get a boner.
Yeah. Eddie is the younger brother, right?
Oh.
I think they mentioned that.
Oh, is he younger? Maybe.
I think because I think at the bar scene, he's like, sorry, that's my little brother. And then she's like, is that really your brother? I think Eddie might be the younger brother.
Oh, wow.
Now he's more arrogant and not as mature. Maybe.
Yeah. Oh, maybe
like by a minute.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just assume. I don't know what I assumed. I didn't assume anything, but now that you mention it, I'm wondering, were they cesarean born? I don't know. So this next scene is a weird one, but it's still like, it's funny though, so I'm okay with it. They're sleeping. Basically, she's kind of staying over the night, right? And they're trying to have a little romantic evening where they're lying in bed together, just kind of talking, and the bed's constantly shaking. So the brother's up to something. We can't see what he's up to yet, but you kind of get what's going on. And they're just kind of talking back and forth to each other. And he says, basically what I do is I try to just clear my mind and don't think about anything else. And she's just kind of sitting there really awkwardly. And then the camera finally reveals that the brother has this like dominatrix woman over, just gyrating on top of him and slapping him with a whip. And they're not having sex, like they're fully clothed, but they're just going through all the motions. And it's super, super awkward for Frank and Marie.
He's the freak.
What's that?
He's the freak. I said he's the freak.
Oh yeah, he's the freak. I missed that part. I missed that whole angle. Yeah, he is a freak. Oh, he's
handcuffed to the yeah.
That's right. He's even handcuffed to the bed. Right. He's getting really into it. I wonder how often stuff like this happens. Yeah, I wonder how often stuff like this happens versus is he just hamming it up to try to make Marie uncomfortable and to raise the tension, between them. But the fact that
probably enough times.
Yeah, but the fact that Frank actually has like a methodology of like just kind of ignoring that tells me that maybe this happens more often.
I was gonna say, because like the bar scene when he mentions like, oh, maybe under that librarian where you have like the studded leather, and like that's what he's into, like this dominatrix. So I assume like that does happen quite often, but maybe you're right. Maybe just because he has a date, he's doing it more frequently.
Yeah,
like just randomly, like just then there.
Yeah. Maybe that's the studded leather corset that he's talking about, the one that woman's wearing. So now this is weird. I love how Frank uses this moment to propose to Marie. He says, "I know I should be on one knee for this, but will you marry me?" And I love Marie's response. She says, "I'm sorry, Frank. This is too bizarre." And she leaves. She runs to the bathroom. And the dominatrix woman who's on top of Eddie actually says, "I'm going to see about that girl. You stay here." And then she points at Eddie, "You too." Like, where's he going to go? If one of them stays there, the other, and one of them's handcuffed there. So of course he's staying there. I just like that line of dialogue. That was good. So this bathroom scene is where we get one of the reveals of the episode. So it turns out that Marie and this dominatrix woman actually know each other. And the dominatrix woman says, "Eddie says, if you get his brother to sign some paper tonight, you and I won't have to be hoeing these streets anymore." So they're basically a couple of prostitutes, right? And what happened was Eddie, I guess, hired them both, or at least hired Marie to seduce his brother to try to get him, to encourage him to, go through with this surgery. So that's kind of where you get that reveal. And to be honest with you, I saw this coming. I knew this moment was coming. I got, I always know, I'm always expecting a twist when we watch these. So this part wasn't really a surprise to me. Although there is one more twist at the end that was interesting to me. But so far, the episode's going the course that I would have expected. So when they come back out, at this point, Marie is really laying it on thick. She's basically talking to Frank saying, I love you, Frank, but just your brother, I can't make this work. You need to do something about it. I can't be with you when you're like this. And she's really, really laying it on thick. And behind Frank is Eddie, who's over there like, yeah, go on. Like he's really, he's really, really rooting for Marie to lay it on thick and really give Frank this guilt trip. By the way, as we go through this episode, you're going to have to just hear what I mean rather than what I say. I think I'm constantly calling Frank Eddie and Eddie Frank. I'm constantly getting them confused. I'm sorry. I'm doing my best, but I think I keep conflating their names. So after this guilt trip, Marie leaves, and Frank tries to follow, but Eddie's handcuffed. Right. So there's a whole to do about getting him uncuffed. And basically, by the time he finally gets to the door, they're gone. Like they hear the car driving away and they're gone. So at this point, Frank has had enough. And this is where the fight starts. And this is I love this fight so much. I love how every time one person does something to the other person also reacts in a way where like it hurts them. Like he punches them, but then they both go flying, against the wall. And then he shoves them through the door and they both, flip over the couch in front of it. Like that just, every time it's just great. They're basically beating each other up and like they're also beating themselves up. So that was so good.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention the second sequence of the fight where they end up kind of downstairs and then they back up against a wall and you see like their old like childhood photo when they had like a friendly wrestle or like a little get together, and the contrast between like them actually fighting is just so funny.
Oh right, I think they even break the picture, when they slam against the wall.
Yeah, they cracked it.
Yeah. This fight is hilarious. At the end of the fight sequence, I love how Frank is finally like ready to sign. And at this point, Eddie reaches into his pocket and pulls out that release form. And of course, he had it on him the whole time because this is the whole point, right?
Right.
So Frank's ready to sign. But just as he's ready to sign, Marie comes back. And she says, "Don't sign that release, Frank. It was all a setup. Eddie hired me to convince you to get that operation." So at this point, she reveals to him that, it was all a ruse. She was only hired to manipulate the situation. But over the course of doing this, she fell in love with him. And she says, "I'll marry you. I'll marry you even if you don't get the operation." And in fact, she doesn't want him to get the operation because she's worried that she might lose him. So she's in love and he is just happy. And they start hugging. And of course, this makes Eddie upset. And he grabs that cleaver again and he stabs Marie in the back. And this is also a funny line of dialogue. I like how Frank says, "Sweetie, you stiffened. Am I moving too fast?" So she falls down to the ground dead. And at this point, Eddie calls the police on himself and basically says, "Look, I'm going to admit to this because they can't kill me. They can't, do anything to me because if they do it to me, they'll do it to you too. And you're innocent." So he calls the police to admit to murder. And this phone call right here. This is my shriek of the week, Godden. I love this phone call. He calls the police. He says, "Yes, this is Edward Duran. I just killed my brother's fiance with a cleaver." "No. The name's Duran. I used a cleaver." I can hear the operator on the other line. I can just imagine her being like, "Mr. Cleaver?" I just love how nonchalant he calls and how confused the operator is. I love the whole situation. That's my shriek of the week. So after the phone call, at this point, Frank's had enough and he grabs the vodka. He grabs some sleeping pills and he starts just taking both, and that starts to freak Eddie out. Eddie's like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" He goes, I thought you'd like to be reckless." So he's had enough, and he's just gonna basically finish off himself with booze and pills. But before they finally pass out, he signs that release form saying, I cannot be connected to you anymore. And I like this moment too. He actually dips the pin in his fiance's blood before he signs. So that was a nice touch at the very end of the that moment there. Is there anything you want to add about that moment?
I think that whole sequence when he starts deciding to drink and pop pills was, you get to realize their dynamic because after each sip and each pill pop, he was like, it takes a lot of responsibility always being the good one. I always have to apologize for you, always have to like look out for you. Like it just sucked. Like this whole life, Eddie was just like being just kind of a piece of shit in a way, and then Frank just had to deal with all the backlash. It's just sad to hear like that's always been their dynamic, and now Frank's had enough.
Wow.
And it just turned to like take control.
That's an interesting thing you bring up, God, and I'm glad you brought that up because that makes me think about this next scene. Because I'll get to that later, but I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't think about that. I don't think I heard that line of dialogue or really considered it. But the next scene, when they're waking up, they're in the hospital, and basically Eddie says, "You tried to kill us both, but all you did was just give me a hangover." So they're waking up, and then when the nurse notices that Eddie is up, she says, "Oh, you're up. You have visitors," and she opens up the curtain, and there are the police. The police basically say, you're going to be arrested for the murder of Marie. And at this point, Eddie's like really cocky because he knows that the police can't do anything to him. And that's when it's revealed that while he was out, they had this surgery and they pull the bed apart. And you can see that, they both have a bandage on their hip area where they've been separated. And in this moment, one of my favorite moments is where Frank realizes what's going on. He goes, "Hey, you're over there." I like that moment. He's never seen his brother over there before. He's always been over here. I like that moment. So at this point, Eddie is taken off to jail where he's worried he's going to be sent to the gas chamber, which I'm surprised they said gas chamber. I'm surprised they didn't continue with the electric chair. I think we could have had another electric
Eddie
chair cameo in that moment.
Yeah, I think Eddie just has a way with how like edgy he is. So I think he just likes to say like just shock and like off the cuff things.
Yeah.
So he might be getting electric chair. We'll never know.
So this last scene is where this is why I'm glad that you had your comment, because this last scene, Frank says to the nurse, "Hey, I'm sure underneath that nurse uniform, there's a studded leather corset itching to get out." So a little bit of his brother is now in Frank. I wonder, because that was kind of the interesting twist to me, was once he finally rid himself of his brother, he became that chauvinist, right? He's now becoming that chauvinist, sexist character. I wonder if having a full life of having to apologize for his brother kept him on the straight and narrow. And now that his brother's finally gone, it allows him to be more himself, which is more like his brother. So I wonder if that's kind of what's going on there, the psychology of why he made that comment.
No, I was also kind of like thrown off when he made that comment. I was like, that's not like Frank. That's not the Frank we know.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it is just like he's just used to being the good one, but now he's allowed to be more free.
Yeah. Now that he's allowed to be more assertive and free. Yeah. Maybe he's going to let his true self out. That to me is the twist of the episode. So the Crypt Keeper outro, he says, "Well, maggot meisters, how's that for a cheeky little tale?" I like that, cheeky. "Frank sure picked a deadly time to sever all ties with his brother, and poor Eddie suffered the unkindest cut of all. A real split personality." So that's the episode. I liked it. I liked it a lot. It's a lot of fun. Remember those actual, like the original conjoined twins, those Siamese twins? You remember them? I looked them up. Chang and Ang Bunker are their names, and they're actually connected by a like a flap of skin around their stomach area, kind of close to their hips. So they were connected in a similar way to how these guys are connected. So there's obviously some overlap there. I'm sure that this show borrowed from that, right? To be, to they even call them Siamese twins. I think that's what they were called back then, though. I don't think conjoined twins was the thing until later. So yeah, Chang and Ang, I believe that these are, based off of those characters, or based off of those real life people, not characters. And in terms of theming for the episode, I was trying to think of other episodes that had like an evil twin or an evil sibling. And a fun example, I think, is the Twins. Have you seen Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito?
No, but I actually been meaning to. I think they brought it to Netflix or Max, and I wanted to watch it, but I haven't gotten around to
Oh,
it.
you got to watch it. It's hilarious. It's so funny. They're twins. They're not identical twins, obviously, but yeah, they are twins, and they're just complete opposites. And it creates a real good like odd couple between the two of them. It's a lot of fun. But the one that I really thought of is a movie that I doubt anybody's ever seen. It's called Basket Case, and I watched this movie when I was much younger. It's a very stupid movie about this. He was a conjoined twin at birth. He cut his brother off and he keeps him in a basket.
What?
Yeah, and this evil twin brother is basically, comes out of the basket and kills people that bother his brother. It's a very strange, bizarre horror movie that I remember kind of vaguely, but there's a few funny scenes in it. So it's always one that I just remembered just because of the funny scenes. But anyway, it did remind me of Basket Case. So. If you've seen Basket Case, let me know in the comments what you think of it. And yeah. There's also a theme of, I felt, from Marie's perspective, finding love or discovering that you love somebody despite something, a deformity or some sort of hideousness about another person. So my mind went to Beauty and the Beast, to be honest with you, like from Bella's perspective.
Mm.
Are there any other like Beauty and the Beast stories that you can think of, or like evil sibling?
For Beauty and the Beast, I was gonna say like Notre Dame, right? He was like hideous, so people treat him like a freak. That was probably like a similar theme where they just felt like freaks their whole life. But for Evil Twin, one of my favorite movies about twins is Legend. It's Tom Hardy, and they're like mob bosses in Europe or the UK, and one's more deranged, and one's like trying to be sane. And at one point or another, just them trying to be an organized mafia. Like they just one of them just had to go at one point or another because one just the plot just got way too out of hand. And honestly, I don't want to say too much because it is something I do want to show you. It's a pretty fun movie, honestly.
Okay.
But it's a serious movie. Yeah, it's nice.
Oh, okay. Oh, what just came to mind when you were talking about that was Man in the Iron Mask, that DiCaprio movie.
Oh.
He played two.
Yeah.
One of them was the evil brother. The other one was, not. And they switch them because I think they were king, right? One of the evil one was king, and they switch them. Yeah.
I haven't watched in a while. Yeah. That sounds about right.
Yeah. Now, the fact that Frank was the nice guy up front, and then by the end of the episode, he was, he seemed to be going more mean-spirited. The main character becoming worse off by the end as a character, I thought that reminded me of The Switch, because, right, the old man is in love, and he wants to do anything he can for the woman, so he actually takes pieces off of himself and replaces it with somebody else. So he physically becomes somebody else. And then he's worse off in the end because he doesn't have the love of his life. So I felt like that was right. I felt like even though he lost his brother, he kind of switched and became his brother by the end. So I don't know. It occurred to me while I was thinking about this. So I thought I would just mention it.
It's not too much of a reach, but I can definitely see it. It's a lot of similarities.
It's a bit of a reach, but not too much of a reach. We're not professionals, people. I'm just here sharing ideas. If you got better ideas, share them below. Okay, there. All right. So ratings. What do you give this episode, God? And I'm gonna have you start this time.
Oh, okay. I would give this a pretty strong 4.5 because it's hard for me to give another 5. I feel like, I don't know, maybe I might change in the future, but for now, 4.5 vodka bottles. I did like the whole drinking thing.
Okay, I like that you went there. So I'm with you on not wanting to go to a 5 on this episode. It's not really gory or grotesque enough, but it's a lot of fun. And I'm gonna go 4.85. 4.85 glasses of milk.
Oh yes,
you did the vodka. I'll do the
opposite. Yeah.
So yeah, I think because there's another story I think I gave a 4.75 to, and I think this is better than that. What was it? Let me look over here. I have them. 4.75 I gave Till Death. Remember that one? That was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
And I do like this one more than Till Death. Okay, that brings us to Horrorspondence. Yo, we got another Horrorspondence from our boy, Joseph Hill. And this is in regards to Lower Birth. He says, I'm 100% with Godin on not liking this as an origin for the Crypt Keeper. I would have preferred they left his origin a mystery. Remember, you had talked about, right, not liking the fact that that was the origin story for the Crypt Keeper, or at the very least, kind of tacked on at the very end. You kind of felt that way.
Yeah, I didn't think it was fair.
Yeah. Joseph Hill agreed with you on that one. Joseph Hill also went on to say that the animatronics, or the person who did the special effects and the animatronics for Chucky, also did it for the Crypt Keeper, and he was actually the director of that particular episode, Lower Birth. So
interesting.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. And he said that Joseph Hill goes on to say that he feels like the Crypt Keeper at the very end looked a lot like Chucky. I'll have to take another look at it, but I can see it. You know, kind of maybe the way the cheeks and the eyes are. Maybe it does. Maybe it was very similar to the Chucky puppetry. Maybe they just kind of recycled it and just used it for that. Well, and finally, that brings us to shout outs. I am still listening to Creeps of the Crypt and the Crypt Keepers podcast. I'm going to link I'm going to link all of the stuff down below, by the way. So if I say anything that interests you, check out the description below. But Creeps of the Crypt and the Crypt Keepers podcast are a couple of places that I go to as soon as we record our episodes and get our thoughts out there. I'll go and I'll listen to their takes just to get their perspective and see what they think. It's fun to see, you know, sometimes we'll agree on an episode, we'll both like it, but they won't, or sometimes, right, or vice versa, we won't like an episode, but they will. So it's fun to see kind of their take, and sometimes they might even change my mind. There's still Haddonfield Radio. They do the watch-alongs with some of the some of the big horror franchises. I just started Return, Revenge, Resurrection, which is a podcast that just some friends who get together and just chat about some of the larger horror movie franchises. And Teach Her Ama, if you're interested in Futurama, a good friend of mine, his girlfriend and brothers actually do a podcast where they watch and review all the Futurama episodes. So check that out if you get a chance. And there's us. There's the Cryptique podcast and the hosts. My name's Kenny. I can be found on Twitch and on YouTube at Too Bad About Kenny. That's with TOO Bad About Kenny, as well as the number 2 Bad About Kenny. Go check those out. I watch and review movies and books, as well as stream video games through Twitch. Godin, how about you?
They can find me at Twitch under UAPP06. I'm currently playing Silent Hill F right now. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully, I'm not done by the time you guys watch this episode, and you can tune in to my gameplay. And you can also follow us at our Twitter, Cryptikers, where you can reach out.
Thank you, Godin, for taking care of that. Okay, well, next week, everybody, we are going to be here, same place, to talk about the final episode of Season 2, The Secret. And I remember this episode, too. This is a good episode coming up. So I'm looking forward to watching and reviewing this episode, The Secret. So I can tell you already, I'm going to like this one coming up. So with that, take care of yourselves. Have a good week. We'll see you on next Friday for next week's episode. Bye, everybody.